Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Hashtag Brand Bosses podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Jamie Chernahoy, founder and CEO of Brand Bosses, a digital marketing agency based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So today we have a special guest with us on the podcast. Kristine Locker is the founder and CEO of Locker. Kristine's story of becoming a founder is unconventional. She spent her first 2 years out of school as a real estate analyst at Goldman Sachs, then worked alongside her dad as a commercial real estate broker. In 2020, she took the leap and founded Locker, a social shopping platform that sits at the intersection of commerce and technology. Locker's mobile app and Chrome extension enables users to save any product they want, organize saves into collections, share collections with friends, and now earn as they shop and share. As an avid online shopper, Kristine found herself constantly taking screenshots of products or keeping dozens of tabs open, but there wasn't a platform that provided the utility or social aspect she craved as an everyday consumer. She stepped away from a lucrative and stable career and invested every penny she had into building Locker so she could provide the solution that she and millions of other shoppers face. She now shares her everyday life as a CEO with her nearly 25K followers. So welcome to the show, Kristine.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, well, we're so excited to have you. And I think, a lot of us can probably relate to going from this stable job, right, into the world of entrepreneurship. So let's start there. Take me back to 2020 when you made the decision to make the leap.
Yeah, so I was working with my dad at the time in commercial real estate brokerage, and I had been in that industry, obviously starting at Goldman for a couple of years and then as a broker for about 3 years. And I remember I'd had this idea for Locker kind of like brewing in my mind. Also, like the entrepreneurial itch was starting to like really eat at me a little bit. And I was sitting and I saw on my phone that Instagram had launched shopping. And it really kind of was like a light bulb moment for me that lit the fire in terms of urgency to say, okay, if I'm going to build a business in this space, I need to really do it now because things are moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to be at the forefront of it and not somebody who was just following behind. I wanted to be the first in the space and not the last. So that really gave me that push to say, okay, let's leave the traditional job and go see what we can build.
I mean, that's so fascinating. I think that you went into this career as an analyst at Goldman Sachs. I actually similarly went into an analyst position right when I graduated, but for a different commercial real estate firm. And then you decided to kind of work with your dad in commercial real estate. So let's go back there as well. Like, what prompted that switch? Did he kind of say, come on board, or was that something you chose to do?
Yeah, so ever since I was a little girl, it's just my parents have 2 daughters. I just have a sister. And my sister's older than me, and she went into the psychology field. And my dad always wanted one of us to essentially work alongside him and take over the business. And he always talked about how lucrative commercial real estate can be. He also always preached the power of being your own boss and having that flexibility. And he really wanted that for his children. And so that was something that was always in my head. And so I actually went into college majoring in real estate finance because my dad had kind of really inspired me to go into that career space. And I was excited about that as my future. But as I got into the industry, I guess as I spent more time in the industry, I just really felt like it wasn't for me. It wasn't that it was a bad job. It just didn't excite me the way that I wanted it to. But going back to your question, I got into it because my dad really preached how amazing it could be.
Mm-hmm. And did you feel like maybe there was a part of you, when you say you weren't really passionate about it, was there a part of you that wanted to be more passionate about it, considering your dad just loved it?
For sure. I wish I was obsessed with real estate. I also constantly I get fed content on TikTok of like really successful real estate brokers, maybe more on the residential side. From like a content perspective, but I think it's such a cool industry and career, and there's so much flexibility and you can make so much money. But yeah, so I wish I loved it more.
Yeah, yeah, that's so funny. But, sometimes it's those unconventional paths that lead us down to this sort of entrepreneurship. And then you started Locker. And so let's
Mhm.
go there. How did you come up with this idea? Where did this stem from?
So I love to shop online, like many of us do, and not always to buy things. I really love to just see what brands are dropping, what are my best friends shopping for, what are the like cute new products, and I love to like be on trend. I actually like describe myself as having very basic style. Like I don't necessarily have the desire to be different. I'm like whatever's trending, I want to wear and I like it and I'm happy in that space. But I used to constantly take screenshots of products that I would see, whether that was on social media or a friend would text a link, or if I got an email from a brand like doing some sort of advertisement, or if I was on my computer, I would constantly take links that I would see and I would put them into a Google spreadsheet. And so that was my way of like organizing things that I saw online. And when I thought about this experience, not only for myself, but also like, how do I shop with my mom, or how am I sharing links between my mom and my sister? And I realized how fragmented it was for consumers, and thinking about like, if you're going on a trip, how are you saving the products that you're thinking about buying? If you're redoing your home and you're looking at a bunch of furniture, like how are you saving those products? And even if you have an interior designer, there's still so many little things that you need to buy, like pots and pans and paper towel like holders and trash cans for every single bathroom. And so I was really trying to build a tool that would solve this fragmentation of what the consumer journey looks like, especially as online shopping has expanded over the last, I would say like 15 years. So that was really like what I started doing, was like sketching what I thought the experience should look like for consumers and how to make the experience more efficient and then also more social. And that was kind of how I came up with Locker.
That's so interesting. And did you have any like background in tech, or like how did you know where to start with it?
No, I always say that for entrepreneurs, one of the most beautiful things is that you start out so naive as to like what the journey is going to look like. Cause I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know one person. Well, that's not true. I didn't know like one mentor, I guess I should say, like specific mentor in the tech space or in the startup space. I just kind of put the pieces together as I was building it. So like the first place I started was Google. I was like, how to start a company? What do you need to do? And like would ask my dad, do I need to talk to a lawyer? And he would ask a friend and then connect me to somebody. And I used Y Combinator's startup school. That was the first program essentially that I watched. It's like an 8-week online program, and you can do it in various different cohorts.
Okay.
And you're just like getting to digest the materials that they've put together. And that was extremely helpful for me in terms of learning kind of the bigger keywords in terms of the startup space, whether that's like equity and fundraising and creating a Delaware C corporation versus an LLC, and learning all of those things. So it was really just like one bite of the elephant at a time, which is what my dad always says to me, is like, this is a really big undertaking being an entrepreneur, but you just need to take it one day at a time and one problem at a time. And then, you look back and you're like, wow, I've made it so far from where I started.
Is that so funny to look back and be like, wow, like I can't believe all the things I never would have guessed I have to encounter. But then you look back and you're like, you made it through.
And it's amazing. Yeah.
And so this program that you went through, this was pretty helpful. And was this something that you just basically like purchased and it kind of gave you all this information, or what was that like?
It's totally free. So anybody can
Okay.
go to Y Combinator Startup School. You sign up to be a part of the cohort, and then you get access to the content. And it's totally free on your own time. And you get to meet other like budding entrepreneurs in the program as well, which is really helpful.
Oh, really? So then does it have kind of a clear like start date, or can you just start it whenever?
I think you can start it whenever, or maybe I actually don't remember because this was 5 years ago now. It may have been like where they run it like every month and I just jumped in at the next month that was available. So I don't remember. I'd have to look it up, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can like it's running year round. It's not like you have to wait 4 months for it to start.
I definitely wish I would have known about that when I started, because, when I started this too, similar to you, I was just asking people like, okay, suddenly I need a CPA, suddenly I need an accountant, like where do I go for all this? And to have kind of a roadmap of like, here are the things you need in place, right? That could be very, very valuable. I think for a budding entrepreneur for sure. Yeah. And so talk to me a little bit about that importance of community. community. So you kind of had this community maybe through this program, but people around you, right, as you began to think about, okay, should I take the leap? Should I not? Like, how important was that, I guess, on your journey?
I think I was in a very, I don't want to say rebellious stage of my life, but I was really seeking change. And so I was pretty set that I was going to start this company. I didn't really take much time to think about, do I really want to do this? Am I going to do it? It was more just, I'm going to do this. What is it going to look like? I don't know, but I am on this journey and I'm going to start this company. And then I always set check-in dates for myself. So every 6 months, I would say like, okay, how far did we get in the business? Did we get where we wanted to be? And obviously everything takes longer than you anticipate, but I was really just like gut checking myself on big milestones. For example, did I find engineers to build the product for me? Once I found the engineers, how far were we getting? Do we have our first 3,000 users? How are they using the product and the platform? So I was maybe in a little bit of like a different mental state in terms of like when I decided to take the leap of faith, because for me, building Locker was like really a search for my identity again, post graduating college and going into the real world, and having a little bit of like an identity crisis post graduation. And so for me, there was so much like willpower behind starting the company because it was my ability to say like, I'm not a child. I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur. I can build this business, and I will build it if I put my mind to it. So I didn't seek as much external approval, I guess, in starting the business. It was really like my own internal like willpower.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that identity crisis post grad because suddenly it's like, well, you're thrown out into the real world. Like, how do I keep my head above water? And I think also that's when you start really asking the questions, or at least I did, of like, what's my purpose? Like, what am I here to do? Like, okay, I've done these, several years in college, whatever it may be. And now it's really kind of a fork in the road. Like, I could do anything with my life, which is kind of almost freeing, but there's a lot of pressure there too, right? To make the right decision. Is that kind of what you were feeling?
Totally. I have what I call a gold star personality, which means that I thrive in an environment where there's essentially a task, a way to accomplish the task, and then like getting the pat on the back upon completion of the task. And obviously in college, that's a very easy environment. It's created for you every single day. It's a class, it's a test, it's getting an A on the test, or like doing as best as you can on the test, and kind of like repeating that over and over again. It's following the curriculum in terms of what courses you're going to take to reach graduation. And so I had this like very clear roadmap for my life in college. And I think once I got out into the real world, like Goldman doesn't have tasks and pats on the back for you. Like you're just working in whatever your little piece of the puzzle is, but you don't get to see a project all the way through. So there's not that same feeling of like completion and praise. And so that was really like where my identity crisis came in. And kind of what you were talking about too is like, what is my purpose here? Like I'm not making a big impact on this company. I'm one of 50 other analysts or whatever somebody's job is. And I didn't feel important in that role. And so I didn't feel like I had a purpose. And I operate very well when I feel like I have a purpose, a reason to get up. What am I building? Why am I here? So for me, I needed to create that sense for myself.
Yeah. And so looking at your life now, you've been doing this for, I think you said about 5 years. How would you verbalize that impact that drives you every day?
It's definitely really intense. It's way more intense than I even ever could have thought, because the purpose is so big now in terms of not only am I building this business for me, but I'm building it for our 200,000 users who use it, daily. I'm building it for my investors who have invested money and who believed in me. I'm building it for my family and any future children to show them, like what we're all capable of. And so I think that purpose is almost like ginormous at this point that drives me every single day. But I would say the difference too is that like I love what I do and I love getting to build this product. So this job is the hardest job that I've ever had by far, but it's also the most exciting and rewarding. It balances itself out in that way.
Yeah, no, I think that was really well said. And so when you started this, was your first step to create the extension or was it the app?
Yeah, I went with extension first. I'm a millennial, and so I'm a big desktop shopper. And I my thesis was that people who shop on their desktop have longer shopping journeys because you're visiting more brand websites, saving more products in one session versus on mobile. You may see one thing on social media and go and save that into your locker. But on desktop, we could really prove how much are people going to use this product and what's it going to look like. So we started with the extension. The extension came out at the end of 2020, like in its very, very early stage. And then we launched the mobile app in June of 2023.
Okay. Wow. So you got a good amount of people maybe on the extension and then pushed them to the app. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah, but when we launched the app, it like really blew up. That's when we like,
Really?
yeah, because if you think about from like a marketing perspective, we haven't done a lot of paid. We barely done any paid marketing. And so we're reaching our users organically via social media. And the easiest place to convert them from social media, since they're on their phones, is to an app on their phone. And so it's just an easier like loop to get people through if they're on their phone to then download an app versus taking them from their phone to their computer to download an extension.
Okay. And so the app then, does it kind of migrate, say, like if I'm on Instagram and I see something, how does that kind of migration look?
So if you want to save something, if you're browsing on Instagram and you want to save something to your locker, if you go into Instagram and you open the product, you at the top right, they have like 3 dots that you can click, and then you can say like open an external browser. Once you do that, you can then save it to Locker.
Oh, interesting. So
Instagram used to make it so that you could go straight, like you would click a link and it would take you out of Instagram, but they got smart and created an in-app browser to keep people in Instagram longer, which I totally get it.
Oh, for sure. And so that seems just like from my deck being in marketing mainly and like running this business, like that seems like a lot of intimidating tech to figure out. And so you've kind of mentioned you have this team of engineers who's been helping you. I'm curious, like how did you first go about finding folks who know how to do these back end things on Instagram and whatnot for the app?
Yeah, so the engineering team has fluctuated over the years at Locker. So when I first started, I worked with 2 brothers who were still in college, and they were independent contractors who built the first version of the Locker extension and the Locker website for me. And then we raised our first bit of money in 2022. That was from a single angel investor user of the platform who is still one of my very, very good friends to this day. And then that allowed me to hire my first full-time technical employee. And now we're a team of 5 engineers as of tomorrow. So they are all incredible. I think being an engineer and working at a startup, they work really long hours. They're very dedicated to figuring out how we're going to solve a problem in the most efficient way possible. And so we couldn't do it without them. So very grateful for the engineering team.
Yeah. And those 2 brothers, did you find them? Did they find you?
I found them. There's a platform called Upwork where you can hire talent. And that was where I found them.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And then the angel investor, did you know them prior or no?
Yes. So she went to SMU. I think she was 1 grade below me, and we had been friends in college. But then when I started Locker, she was just a user of the platform, and we reconnected via the platform. And then I had posted a couple like probing questions on social media to try and gather some data. And she reached out and asked if those questions meant that I was fundraising. And I answered, yes, I was thinking about it, had been working on a pitch deck. And so she asked to have a conversation about it. And I really didn't know what to expect, but we went through a full diligence process together. And she invested $1 million into the business.
Wow. Wow. That's quite the compliment for sure. And I'm sure that you still work pretty closely with her from the user standpoint as well.
Yeah, she now is a stylist too. So she uses it from like being a stylist to also using it for herself. She did her wedding registry on the platform. So she's a huge supporter.
Oh, interesting to see probably for you, like the different uses of it as well.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And so thinking about when you you have this product, you probably maybe have the extension at first. How did you go about spreading the word about Locker?
Because I was self-funding the business, there was no real option to be like, okay, let's spend $20,000 in marketing here or there. So I really was trying to be as scrappy as possible with what we had. And so we worked with a few influencers to start. I don't know if you know Mary Ralph or Kennedy Critchlow of Daily Drills, but worked with them at the very beginning, worked with Ella Rose at the very beginning. Obviously, because I was a startup and I think they were also earlier in their careers as well, like we were able to come up with like affordable rates that made it so that I could work with them. And that really helped kind of like get our first initial users. But then other than that, it was all word of mouth. So it was like an organic social strategy, starting the TikTok, friends of friends, and then really like drilling into niche communities. So for example, a big audience for us is colleges. So finding girls on college campuses, having them be ambassadors for the brand, or like for us as like a company, and getting that word of mouth out has been our best strategy. I've seen companies come before me in the space or in like adjacent spaces, and they've spent a lot of money up front on acquiring users. So here's $50, download my app. But then you're, of course, going to get those users very easily. But then how do you keep them? And I wanted to build a product that we could prove the value of and say like, okay, we acquired that user organically and we can keep them. And then now we're really looking at ways that we can reward our consumers. I always say like on the back end, like for their loyalty, like now we're rewarding consumers for loyalty. So we built our Locker Shopping Club. MG, who's our head of marketing, when she joined the team, built our Locker Shopping Club, which is our way to reward our users for inviting their friends to the platform so they can earn their way through different tiers. And the highest tier is we'll buy them a $750 outfit out of their locker, which is like very fun. So it's a fun way for us to connect with our users and like inspire them to share about the platform.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And as you began your influencer marketing strategy, I'm curious about this because that's kind of maybe an industry that we're dipping into a little bit right now. And I'm curious, so when you first started reaching out to these influencers on the Locker, social platform or the app, how did you phrase, I guess, the partnership model, or how did you first initially, I guess, spark their interest to get involved?
Yeah, I think that for Locker, it's a little bit less organic, if that makes sense, with influencers, because we don't compete necessarily with influencer monetization platforms, but for influencers, they already have a tool to link products. So for us, it was really finding influencers who cared a lot about their audiences, who wanted to provide tools to their audience as well. And so it would be, for example, a narrative might be like, you see me use this different influencer linking tool all the time, but I found something for you to use because not all people are like able to apply and get accepted to like these various different platforms. So it was really me seeking out influencers that I personally felt connected to, whether that was like I've watched their content for years and I felt like I trust them as influencers and I enjoy watching their content. And then from there, like building that relationship to show them, okay, here's how the platform works. Like, for example, Mary, Ralph, and Lyle, her twin sister, they like both were like, wait, this makes so much sense for us. And they could shop with each other. And so they were both using it organically in that way. And so it made the partnership very seamless for us. So influencer marketing hasn't been the easiest avenue for us in terms of like, okay, we can go work with 50 different influencers. It's been much more curated in terms of who are we going to work with, who's the right person to like share the message, and is it going to reach their audience in the best way possible.
That's really interesting. And was that like cold reach out when you first started kind of reaching out to these folks?
Yes, it was. A lot of influencers have their emails in their bios, so we would just reach out to those emails. I think that was like the only way we went about it. I'm trying to think if we did any like DMing on social media. I feel like ever since Instagram created the like message requests versus it just landing in the inbox has made it a lot harder to reach people. And so we just do the email as like the quickest way to reach them.
That's really awesome. And I'm looking at your page right now and it looks like you even have some like UGC stuff, right? People are doing content for you, sending it for you as well. And is that a newer, I guess, addition to your marketing strategy?
Yeah. So we work with usually like 1 to 4 interns every semester.
Okay.
And they create content with us. So we like handpick them. We work with them on a weekly basis to help them like come up with the content strategy. And we're going to be working on something new with our interns for the rest of this semester, where they're going to be a little bit more independent in their content making, just to test it out, to like let their creative juices flow and like try a different strategy. Because I think it's always fun to test new things on the organic side. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah, that's really fun. And just looking at your page, have you found, I see kind of a mix of you're featuring maybe different products and kind of like a scrapbook style post. And then you also have these like the day in the life, where maybe you're featuring like an actual person wearing the different clothes. Have you found one style, whether it be posts or reels to be, I guess, more maybe profitable or get more clicks than others?
Yeah, it really depends. TikTok has been like our highest converting platform in
Mm-hmm.
general. If we compare like TikTok to Instagram, but the difference there is like the TikTok audience tends to be less consistent in terms of
Mm-hmm.
you're constantly reaching a new audience versus reaching the same people over and over again. Whereas on Instagram, you obviously are building this community and
Mm-hmm.
it's the same people seeing and liking your content over and over again. I would say in terms of like converting to new users, talking about Locker or like doing a reaction video and then showing how the platform works converts best, which sounds like a little bit cheesy, but it
Mm-hmm.
just works in the algorithm. On Instagram, I would say what converts best are the outfit flat lays. People love seeing
Mm-hmm.
how something could be styled, and how they could envision maybe a couple pieces they already have in their closet with something new. And so putting together outfits that inspire people's shopping journey help or just like works really well for us
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm taking a look at it right now, and I think you verbalized it much better than I did. Like a flat lay. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
I said scrapbook, so that's a better way
that's
to say it.
okay.
But I think you make a good point. Like people can say, okay, I have this, I don't really have that, but this gives me like inspiration. Like I think that's half of the battle too, is like creating a page that is inspiration for a brand or someone. And I think you guys have done a great job of that. And also, it kind of resembles like a magazine. Like you think back to, maybe a decade ago, and like we have all these magazines where you're seeing all these different products, and you even still see that today. And so you're kind of bringing in maybe a little bit of the old concept with new, which is really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we have essentially three pillars of content that we strive for. One being education about the platform. How
Mm-hmm.
do you use it? What is it? And then entertainment, so like trending sounds, and then curation, which is like styling and helping people actually find outfits. So we try and
Mm-hmm.
alternate between those so that the content never gets boring, and that there's always like something fun to watch.
Yeah. Do you know, does your marketing team kind of focus on like one pillar per day? Is it like Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Like you're hitting the content pillars, or how do you kind of mix in that tangibly?
Yeah, so every Monday we have essentially like our social content planning call, and
Okay.
we break up the days for that week. So Monday through Friday, and we'll think about, okay, which part of the pillar are we hitting and
Mm-hmm.
on which day? And that really helps us stay consistent with the variety. On TikTok, it's actually a little bit harder because the cadence of posting should be like 2 to 3 a day. And then obviously we're working with the interns as well. And so it's a little bit less consistent in terms of the variety of
Mm-hmm.
content. Sometimes you'll get on a roll talking about one thing or doing styling. And then we have to remind ourselves like, oh, if you look at the page right now, it doesn't have enough content talking about how to use the platform. Okay, let's go do 3 or 4 videos about that and get back on
Mm-hmm.
track. But on
Yeah.
Instagram, we're extremely consistent.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Your Instagram is really fun to look at, so everybody should go take a look at it. Go give them a
Yay.
follow. It's at Want Locker. And I'm curious, have you had any questions about being acquired or anything of that nature since you've started?
A few times earlier on,
Mm-hmm.
but it definitely wouldn't have been the time we would have wanted to sell. I think we would have been selling ourselves short had we even entertained that early on. We hadn't had the
Mm-hmm.
chance to prove ourselves. That was before raising the second bit of money. So to date, we've raised 3.5 million. And so I think it was a little more like vulture acquisition strategy versus like an actual successful exit for us
Mm-hmm.
as a company. But it's definitely like a really interesting thing that we think about all the time in terms of when you're building your product, who are you building it for?
Yeah.
And obviously we're building it for the consumer, but you also want to be very conscious of like, what is our exit strategy, whether that's IPO or acquisition, and how does Locker serve like a broader
Mm-hmm.
audience on the business side as well.
And how have you gone about like learning about the exit strategy? Because that's actually something that nobody has really mentioned on the podcast before. So I'm curious, kind of your thoughts on that.
I think it's watching the industry and other businesses around us. For example,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know if you remember the Yes, but I would describe them as like a dating app for clothing in terms of an algorithm trying to learn your preferences,
Mm-hmm.
and then showing you pieces that you ultimately would like to shop. And they were acquired by Pinterest in, I want to say 2021, 2022. I could be wrong on the dates. Could have
Mm-hmm.
even been 2023. We're in 2025 now, and that feels crazy to me. But I think watching other companies, why were they acquired, learning as much as you can about, okay, what was the purpose, the business purpose for Pinterest in that acquisition strategy, you can learn so much about your space and the businesses that are essentially like of the acquisition tier. So I spend a lot of time, like, obviously understanding the market and teaching myself about those things. From an IPO perspective, I think there's a lot that I wouldn't know until we got to that phase, just because it's a little bit further down the line. But I think it's just watching successful companies that have come before us do it. Like, I look at Whitney Wolf as such an inspiration in terms of what she's built as a business, IPOing with like a baby in her arms and kind of that female empowerment. And then I also look at founders like Melanie Perkins from Canva, where they haven't been acquired or IPO'd and they're running a multi-billion-dollar business. And so I think there's many different options for us as founders, and it's just educating ourselves as to what do we want, what's best for the business and our investors, and building for that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And as you were talking, it kind of made me think of, I listened to this like podcast by Tony Robbins, and he talks a lot about proximity and where are you when you're building your business. Do you think being out in California has been like a major benefit for you and a catalyst to building this business? Or would you say you could have really built this anywhere? I'm just interested in your perspective on that.
It's a really interesting question. I think there are a lot of opportunities that have come from the network in California. For example, I'm constantly, weekly, I'm at female founder events or investor events that are based here. I think it's easy to find those in metropolitan cities like LA, San Francisco, Austin, and New York, Miami even now too. And so I think it has been important to be at least in one of those big cities or willing to travel for various different events. For example, our lead investor in our last round is Wonder Ventures, and they invest in the future of LA tech startups. And so like they invested in me because I am based here. It's a part of their thesis as a company. And then that also obviously aligned with us as a company. And so I think there are many opportunities that have come from being in this city, but I also don't think that you have to be in one of the big cities to start a business.
Yeah, I think that was well said. It just makes me think a little bit about like, you see all these tech hubs in, Silicon Valley, Austin, like you said, like some of these major cities. And I'm just curious, I always think about like, how would even my business be different elsewhere, right? Because we have clients across the US. But I'm just curious, even the mentorship aspect of it. My husband and I were talking, and he posed this question that he heard. It was like, if you were to go on this retreat, I think Jesse Itzler did it. He went on this retreat with like 20 other, founders, anywhere from like millionaires to billionaires, and they just had this like wellness retreat. And you can imagine the amazing conversations I'm sure that went on. And my husband asked me, he's like, who would be at your retreat? And I was just sitting there and I'm like, I can't name like one or two at this point. And granted, it took me by surprise, but I think there is really power in proximity and who are you being mentored by and who are you aspiring to be and how close are you to them? And so I think you bring up a good point with that.
Yeah, I think being in LA as well, we have a very strong group of fellow female founders. We're in a book club together. We talk about our businesses together. We go on walks and talk about our businesses together, and we're all in completely different spaces. But the synergies of being in a similar stage in our lives, age-wise, being in a similar stage of our businesses, has created just a lot of momentum for us being able to build together. And so I would say that there are a lot of things that can come from like proximity to the network that is beneficial to you. But I also, like, if you remember during COVID, even if you were in LA or like proximate to people in LA, you were still doing everything online and making connections online via video calls and the like of like what we're doing. And so I do think there's still really powerful things that can take place online as well.
But I think it's just so key to be a part of a group like you are, like you said, a book club, kind of this walking crew, because I think the reality is I feel like sometimes I look at the people around me and I kind of feel like a different breed, right? Like I'm willing to put in the hours day in, day out. I'm willing to work 7 days a week. And that takes a certain personality. And I'm sure that you
Yeah.
can relate to that as well. But sometimes I do feel like, oh, maybe I'm a little isolated or I isolate myself. So to have a group like that, I think you used maybe the word like energy, or you get momentum from that. Like that's clear as day what it is, I think for sure, in the
Yeah.
importance of community.
And understanding these people don't expect you to pick up the phone or text back immediately. They know exactly what you're going through, and that like ultimately you'll respond, but it may just be like a little while later, and that you're not
Yeah.
available for dinner every night of the week and things like that. So it
Yeah.
creates a good friendship because you're experiencing different or similar, sorry, you're experiencing similar um, I guess like work requirements in life.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And so just so I'm clear, the monetization aspect is in the app. Is that right? Like, do folks have to buy a membership, or where is the monetization piece? No.
No, so we will always be, at least right now, I guess you should never say never, but
Okay.
my vision for the platform is that Locker will always be free for our
Okay.
users. I really think that we're providing a tool for users that in tandem is extremely beneficial for brands to get access to their consumers. And
Yeah.
there's so much data about us. For example, I have a home decor collection, constantly saving things from Lulu in Georgia and West Elm and Crate and
Yeah.
Barrel. And like now you have all of this really rich data about who I am as a shopper, that I'm thinking about home decor. Now, like, send me advertisements in the home decor space, drop me a 10% off coupon. Like, that's really impactful for you accessing me as a consumer or potential consumer of your brand. And so we look at monetizing as like a B to B to C business. So ultimately we serve consumers, but it's almost like on behalf of brands. And so we make money in two different ways right now. Traditional affiliate. So if you save something to your locker, it's with a brand that we're partnered with, and you drive a sale or make a successful
Oh,
purchase,
sure.
we make a portion of that sale or commission on that sale. And then we also do flat fee partnerships. Like when you mentioned that our Instagram feels a little bit like a magazine, I smiled because we have a content strategy on the actual platform where we're selling almost like editorial placements to brands. So we'll
Oh,
curate
sure.
collections on behalf of brands. We're going to, for example, we work with Free People every single month. We go into their website. We get to pick from the pieces that we love the most. We curate them into a collection, and then we're sharing them with our community. And so we're paid to do that stuff as well. So it's kind of like multi-sided, but we really focus on how to support the consumer. And then also, because we're supporting the consumer, how we can also support our brands that we work with too.
Yeah, that's really, really smart. Do you guys go right to, say, you mentioned, I think, what was it? The Lulu, what's the brand name? The
Which
Lulu,
one?
what's the interior design? You mentioned
Oh,
some
Lulu
sort.
in Georgia.
Yeah, Lulu in
Yeah.
Georgia. So, for example, like, would you ever go to them and be like, hey, we have this new app. Like, you guys need to promote this because of XYZ. Like, your consumers can directly save stuff. This is going to help them. So things aren't just lingering in their cart, but it's actually saved somewhere longer than 24 hours, whatever it is. Like, is that a whole part of your strategy as well?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, from a actual tech perspective, we've thought about building for like creating like a Shopify app
Yeah.
where like a brand could add that to their website as like a support mechanism for consumers. So like, yes, rather than putting it in your cart and abandoning that, can you save it to your locker instead? And now, instead of that being an individual experience
Right.
for you, now 200,000, and obviously as we grow more, shoppers are now also seeing that product that you saved, and so it comes into this like social ecosystem. We have been such a small team to date. We haven't taken any resources to invest in that part of the business yet, but it's definitely something we think about all the time, is having it be a part of the brand's website, in addition to obviously us having our own like consumer facing tech products.
Okay, that's really interesting because I feel like that
Yeah.
makes so much sense to me just from an outside perspective, right? Like that these brands are promoting you as well because it's in hindsight helping them. Like we work with an e-com, I guess, brand, you could say, in the interior design sector. And, you know, we're always looking for ways like how do we continue to engage people who have left their carts or have gone a different way or haven't touched, you know, the website in an XYZ long time, right? And so it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we always think about, for brands, when a consumer abandons something in their cart, it doesn't tell you enough about them and the experience to like be able to retarget them in a like a very strategic way. Like, where did they abandon that in their cart because they found something else they liked better? Are they just not shopping right now because they're planning a trip that's in 2 months? Was your like shipping too expensive, so they decided they weren't going to buy it because they don't want to pay $5.99 for shipping. So like contextually, if you can learn as much as you can about the consumer, for example, I may have a collection that says, please go on sale. And so like that brand would know, oh, she wants to buy this, but she needs it to like be at a discount. So she's waiting. Or her collection says Hawaii and she's just curating, 50 products a day to that collection for Hawaii, and it's from 3 different brands. And so like there's a lot more information that you can learn about your consumer in context that you don't understand from them just putting something in their cart and walking away from it.
Yeah, and it would be really interesting too if you even added like an aspect to it where, folks have, say, something from Abercrombie or whatever in their cart, but then you find the dupe on Amazon or something of that nature, and then people can like directly go there. Like Amazon should be like funny to you guys because of something like that. That seems like a really good idea too. Because sometimes, like I'm aspirational. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll save this, $300 shirt, whatever. And it's like, when it comes to me becoming realistic, I'm like, okay, I don't really need that. But if there was a dupe of it that I found, like that would be an easy transaction for me. So it's just an interesting idea.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So looking at, I guess, 2025, what are you looking forward to in your life with this venture? Like, tell me a few things.
Yes. In 2024, from a business perspective, we focused a lot on our revenue strategy. So I was very adamant on creating a sustainable monetization strategy. How are we monetizing on our users? And what, like, essentially making sure that as we grew the user base, that the monetization strategy moved forward with us too. So we did very well with that in 2024. We were profitable the entire year, which is at our stage of a business pretty rare typically. But now for 2025, from a business perspective, I am very excited to invest more in growth of the user base. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, we've only spent very minimally on paid, and that was just through like very few influencer marketing campaigns. So for 2025, we'll look at testing different paid strategies and seeing kind of like how we can skyrocket user growth. Like I would love to be in the 500,000 to 1 million users, which obviously is like very aspirational and a very big number, but like I'm very excited. And I also know that we could totally do it. We have a product that warrants that many users as well. So that's kind of on the business side what I'm very excited about. Also, at the end of 2024, we launched our Payback Program, which is our way of rewarding our consumers. You should join it if you haven't yet. But if you buy something out of your locker, you can make cash back. Or if you inspire someone else to buy something out of your locker, you make commission. And so it's a very fun way for people to shop with each other. Like if I buy something out of my friend's locker, who's also part of the Payback Program, we both make money on that transaction, which is just really fun. And anybody can join it, which is like something that we talk about all the time. That's different is like there's no application. It doesn't matter how many followers you have on social media. If you're going out and being like an influential person and, sharing things with your friends, like you also deserve to earn on that voice. So very excited about investing more in that program and talking about it more, getting more awareness around it. In my life, I don't know, I'm an aunt to 2 baby girls, and I think it's just the best thing ever. They are the most fun. I'm obsessed with being around them. I'm turning 33 this year, so I'm definitely like starting to think about that for myself in terms of, okay, when do I need to start thinking about having children and that part of my life, but also work is very busy. So that would be a very interesting balance. So we'll see kind of like what happens there, but yeah, excited to like take next steps in life as well.
Yeah. Well, it's been really fun to hear about your journey. I'm also a auntie, so I can relate to you. Auntie of soon to be 4. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
I wouldn't trade it. Yeah. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Absolutely love it. But it's been so fun to get to know you a little bit today and to hear about your new venture. And, as you talk, I'm just sitting here and I'm like, this just makes complete sense to me. Like this technology, this app, everything, like it just makes sense. And I think that's really rare to come by today because I think a lot of people try to create things that, maybe have temporary value, but this actually has long-term value. And I think that's really cool. And so how can people find Locker? How can people get in touch?
Amazing. Thank you. Locker, if you're on your computer, wantlocker.com, you'll be able to access downloading the extension from there. On the App Store, we are Locker Shopping Wish List. You can find us there. We actually should probably change our app store name to be like Want Locker too, to be consistent with everything. But then on social media, just at Want Locker, I'm at Kristine Locker, and we'd love to have you follow along. Download the app or the Chrome extension wherever you shop the most, or both. I use both all the time. And feel free to reach out to us anytime you have questions or just want to chat, you can connect with me on LinkedIn too.
Yeah. And just to give a little plug, when I first talked to Kristine, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because it was near Christmas time. And I was like, the amount of things that I've come across in like May that I'm like, oh, this would be perfect for my brother, whatever it is. And it's just gone forever. It's poof.
Yep.
And this is like such a great tool to, I guess, keep track of different things. And it's just kind of like Pinterest on steroids and 10 times better. So I love it. And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, for sure, go get the app, go follow them on social. Their page is really fun to see. And Kristine, thank you for being with us. This is going to be the episode that kicks off season 5. So
Yay.
super excited to have you as our first guest of this new season. And everybody else, be sure to follow along hashtag Brand Bosses on social and of course on the podcast app so that you don't miss a beat. Thanks for being here, Kristine.
Thank you.